Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a real documentary-style investigation of what might just be the ultimate winter medical mystery. We're going to explore the absolutely fascinating thermodynamics of mucosal immunity to finally definitively settle a debate that has literally raged in households and doctors' offices for decades. Grab a warm drink because what we're about to unpack is going to fundamentally change how you view the winter season.
Your whole life, doctors told you going out in the cold doesn't make you sick. Your whole life, your mother told you it does. In 2022, scientists at one of the world's most respected medical institutions ran the definitive experiment, and your mother won. Okay, so let's unpack this historical clash. You know the drill. For generations, folk wisdom warned us, put your coat on or you're going to catch your death of cold, right? But pushing back against that was the mid-20th century clinical consensus. For decades, modern medicine firmly stated that temperature is entirely neutral. They argued that physical chilling had absolutely zero effect on your viral susceptibility and that only exposure to the virus itself mattered. It was a classic clash between everyday public observation and, frankly, a bit of clinical arrogance. But as we know, science is always evolving.
Which brings us to this massive 2022 medical plot twist. A landmark study published in the Journal of Allergy and Clinical Immunology by researchers from Mass Eye and Ear and Northeastern University totally detonated everything we thought we knew. They made a microscopic discovery right at the front of your nose, the anterior nasal cavity. It turns out our noses possess a previously unidentified frontline immune response that had somehow gone completely undetected by previous generations of scientists. Wild, right? So to really understand this, we need to shrink down into the microscopic battlefield inside your nose. We're talking about extracellular vesicles, or EVs for short. These are billions of tiny, fluid-filled, lipid-enclosed particles that are naturally released by your nasal cells to coordinate an antiviral defense. Think of them as these unsung cellular heroes, microscopic bubbles that are just constantly patrolling your upper respiratory tract to keep you safe from invisible invaders. And here's how they actually work. When your nasal cells detect a virus, specifically through something called the TL3 pathway, they don't just sit there. They immediately release a massive swarm of these EVs directly into your nasal mucus. Dr. Benjamin S. Blyer, one of the senior authors of the study, brilliantly compared this biological reaction to kicking a hornet's nest. Literally, the moment a virus enters, billions of these angry EV hornets swarm out to attack.
And this swarm, it is armed to the teeth. It's got a highly sophisticated three-part arsenal. First, there's the decoy defense, where billions of these vesicles just swamp the virus, essentially crowding it out completely. Second, they're covered in ICAM1 and LDLR surface receptors. These act like false targets. They trick the virus into binding to the EV instead of your actual vulnerable host cells. And finally, they drop MIR17 RNA bombs. This is microRNA cargo packed inside the vesicle that gets delivered directly to the virus to kill it. It is a highly sophisticated microscopic defense grid. So that begs the question, if we have this incredible defense system, why in the world do we get sick so much more often in the winter? Well, let's transition from the microscopic battlefield to the actual physics of winter. The critical question researchers asked was, what exactly happens to our hornet's nest of EVs when we breathe in frigid, dry winter air? The 2022 data revealed something literally chilling. Researchers exposed healthy volunteers to 4.4 degrees Celsius air, so that's about 39.9 degrees Fahrenheit, for just 15 minutes. And they found that the internal tissue temperature of the nasal cavity plummeted by a full 5 degrees Celsius or 9 degrees Fahrenheit. Just 15 minutes in the cold physically freezes the front line of your immune system. And that temperature drop has a devastating consequence. That 5-degree drop in tissue temperature causes a massive 42% decrease in the secretion of your protective EV swarm. Literally, nearly half of your defending army simply fails to deploy, just because the tissue is too cold to produce them. But wait, the collateral damage goes even deeper. The cold doesn't just cut the swarm's numbers, it heavily disables the surviving EVs. They suffer a 24% reduction in those virus-killing miR-17 microRNA bombs. And even worse, there's up to a 77% loss of those crucial ICAM1 and LDLR decoy receptors. So, stripped of their traps and their weapons, the remaining EVs are functionally useless. This allows viruses to easily bypass them and infect your host cells. Now let's connect the dots here, because this lines up perfectly with another landmark discovery made by Yale University back in 2015.
They found that cold temperatures also blunt the host's innate cellular interferon alarm system. When you combine that Yale discovery with the 2022 EV swarm failure, the result is staggering. Because your immune defenses are basically frozen, rhinovirus replication amplifies by 100 to 1,000-fold. The virus isn't getting stronger in the cold. Your immune system is just dramatically weaker.
So the crucial takeaway here is that winter creates what scientists call the triad of seasonality, a perfect biological storm. First, people are crowded indoors, passing germs at close range. Second, the low humidity of winter heating flash dries and preserves airborne viruses, letting them float around longer. And third, the cold air literally freezes our local nasal immunity. All three of these factors align perfectly to make you sick.
But hey, don't worry, we are absolutely not helpless here. Let's pivot to some solutions. Now that we understand exactly how the cold disarms our immune system, the research gives us 3 immediate, actionable, and scientifically backed ways to protect ourselves right now. Wearing a mask for thermal regulation, supplementing vitamin D, and prioritizing hand hygiene and sleep.
Step 1 is thermal regulation. We really need to rethink the mask. Masks aren't just physical filters. They actually act as nasal blankets. By wearing a mask outside in the cold, you trap your exhaled heat and moisture. This maintains a warm microclimate inside your nose, which completely preserves your EV decoy swarm from freezing. You are literally keeping your hornet's nest warm and ready to fight.
Step 2 is vitamin D. During the winter, we all suffer from a massive deficit in UVB exposure from the sun. The research highlights that taking 400 IU, or 10 micrograms, of daily vitamin D can keep your serum levels above 75 nmol/L. Why does this matter? Well, because maintaining this level supports your systemic immunity and can actually lower your risk of respiratory infection by up to 33%. That's a huge difference.
And step 3 covers the absolute vital basics: hygiene and sleep. Standard, thorough hand washing physically removes viruses from your hands before they can even reach your nose, which reduces cold incidences by 16 to 21%. Furthermore, prioritizing high-quality sleep ensures that your systemic innate immune functions don't crash, keeping your overall biological defenses operating at absolute maximum capacity.
So, it turns out, telling you to bundle up so you don't catch a cold wasn't a myth after all. It was just biology waiting for a microscope powerful enough to see it. It is a total vindication for mothers everywhere, which leaves us with a rather provocative thought to end this explainer. If generations of mothers were right about the cold air making us sick, what other old wives' tales is science about to prove right? Keep learning, keep questioning, and definitely stay warm out there.